Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd and I source cars for people on a professional basis, hence the name of my channel, Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. 4 years ago, I was asked to come up with a series of videos that were filmed inexpensively. We don't use digital cameras, we don't use fluid head tripods, we don't use shotgun microphones, we wear tatty shirts, we just use a phone. But we look at cars that you can buy for a budget up to £1,000 only, and we very much enjoy ourselves. These are cars that might be in cosmetically bad condition. You might see oil leaks, rattly dashboards and cosmetic imperfections, but we go all over the country and we find these very inexpensive cars that you all seem to enjoy watching. Well, viewers, the first ever van we've had on No Budget Reviews, and the first van we've had in general in quite a while actually. Normally they're things like Transits and Vivaros, stuff like that. We can't really talk about those anyway on the channel. I don't know why I'm mentioning them. What I can mention though is this 2003 MG ZR Express 160. Now, these were marketed just as the MG Express. Most people don't even know that these exist. For some reason in 2003, MG Rover thought it was a good idea to introduce van versions of the Rover 25 and the MG ZR, known as the Rover Commerce and the MG Express. I'm going to refer to it as the ZR Express because it's got ZR badging on it, and these days I think people just call them that. I don't think they just call them the Express anymore. So this is the top of the range model with the 1.8 VVC engine with 158 horsepower. The main rival, I suppose, to this back in the day would have been a Mark 6 Fiesta van, and that was actually smaller than this. There was less load space on one of these. When the Rover 200 R3 was originally designed in 1995, it was supposed to be positioned upper size in terms of the things like the Mark 4 Fiesta and things like that, and the Corsa B. And so even with the next generation, the Fiesta that came along in 2002, this was still seen as a little bit larger perhaps, maybe even the load space. So we'll open up the load space here. One thing to bear in mind is actually, although the normal ZR160 would be ultra emission zone compliant, this one is not, because it's a van. And this is one of the ones that's not been converted to be an Express. It originally was. We can see there's sort of a bulkhead that goes across there, which we'll see in a sec as well. There's all sorts of things you can fit in here. See if we lift up this sort of carpet here. The 25s and Zs always had a funny carpet arrangement anyway. So if we lift this up, sort of solid floor in here actually, as opposed to the sort of it was like a cardboard floor in the other ones. It was like a plywood. This is a nice solid feeling one, in which case we're not going to be able to sort of look underneath it, but you can see it's nice and firm. We're actually putting whatever you need to transport around, and actually there's a lot of stuff here. It's like almost like an estate car, the sort of size of the boot, or even bigger, because you've not got the rear seats in it. So that's quite practical, particularly for like zipping around town. And you know, this was, I think, the fastest van in Britain at the time, with this sort of powerful engine. So we're going to look in here. I've moved the seat all the way back to the bulkhead. Bit of wear on the bolster. This is done on over 100,000 miles. So you expect to see some wear, which is here. And then there's the bulkhead to stop stuff flying forward and potentially injuring you. Because this is based on the 25, you've got things like the bottle holders in the doors, which demonstrate here nicely when you're on journeys, which is very handy. A lot of cars of this age didn't have cup holders really at all, which was surprising. But almost identical to a ZR inside here. Got the pre-facelift dash in here. The facelifted dash didn't come along until I think about April 2004. Nice instruments there. The classic MG sort of black on silver it is actually, this one. And then a very similar dash to the old R8 sorry, R3 200. This would be November 25. This one's actually got air conditioning, which is nice, and front fog lamps. A lot of these it would be blank in those two. And the heater resistor does actually fail on these. It's the same heater unit as in the HHR 400s and the 45s and the ZSs as well. And it's pretty easy to change it. You can get a kit from Discount MG Rover Spares, DMGRS, who do supply some very nice parts for all your MG Rover era car needs. This one's actually even got a sunroof, which is brilliant. It's got a sunroof and air conditioning. We'll just leave that open when we go for a drive later on. So yeah, there's the good old Rover 800 mirror switch that was in cars till 2005. Nice steering wheel, same old indicator and wiper stalks as in countless other sort of MG and Rover models. And the PG1 gearbox, the 1.4 version of this, the Express 105 it would have been badged as, would have had the Ford IB5 gearbox. This has the Honda PG1 gearbox in it, or Honda derived PG1. PG1s can get a little bit loose as they get higher mileage. This one is no exception. It's a little bit on the loose side, but it's it's quite a lot better than some of the floppy PG1s I've experienced, like the one in Mr. Richard and Furious Driving's Tomcat. Let's see if we can get our secret mission documents in there. Ooh, Rob, who has driven this car from Abingdon, where the MG Car Club is based, so it's obviously liveried for them, has left me some space. So can we get our mission documents in here? Oh no, viewers, we've still got problems. Same old problem as always. We'll have to put them in the door. Never mind. That is annoying, but expected. So yeah, one thing about these, the driving position of them is a little bit weird. It actually has a height adjuster, and I've wound it down as far as it'll go. But even so, I always find with these, the cable in this, the clutch cable, can be a bit nasty. This isn't too bad actually compared to some of them. But the brake and the clutch pedal are at different heights, and actually these always bite quite high in the clutch anyway. You can adjust it, and this one's probably been sorted out a little bit, but it's not necessarily the easiest to drive. Accelerator's all the way down there. It requires sometimes actually wearing, shoes that aren't too big, which I've actually chosen to do today, just to give it me a little bit more of a chance. But anyway, it's not going to matter too much when we go out for a little zippy drive, is it? Right, got ashtray down here, 12-volt socket there, and an aftermarket stereo. The stereos that MG Rover were using by 2003 were a real sort of hodgepodge mixture of them anyway, so having an aftermarket one in like this that has, an aux in is probably a good idea. Right, well let's take a look under the bonnet now, before I get too excited and can't actually form my words properly. Let's take a look under the bonnet and have a look at the beast that lies beneath. So, very familiar front structure to anyone who's driven 25 Streetwise, ZR, Rover Commerce, MG Express, R3 200. Actually, even the old R8 200 and 400 had the same front structure as this, but first and strut front suspension. I'm actually surprised this hasn't got a strut brace on it, because lots of these now do have strut braces on them, but it's probably rigid enough anyway without a strut brace, to be honest. 1.8 K-series engine, in this case developing 158 horsepower. The 160 figure is a PS figure, and the VVC unit there, which isn't actually badged VVC in this car for some reason. By 2003, they hadn't put the sort of name of the manufacturer on the rocker cover, because obviously if you've got MG and Rover, it's just a little bit easier just not to put either on there. The pre-facelift front end, some people prefer the post-facelift one. I sort of like both really, I'm not that particular in that way. And we've got everything sort of easy to hand. Now what you need to do, if you do have a problem with the K-series head gasket, which these days is something that is just an occurrence really, is fit a Victor Rhines or equivalent original specification head gasket, or one from a Lotus Elise. That also will work pretty well. The MLS ones, they seem to be sort of 10 years ago or so quite a good solution, but over the course of many years they haven't actually proven to be as good as they imagined. So the Victor Reinzel equivalent or Lotus Elise type head gasket is the way to go. Obviously, when you do put a new head gasket on, make sure you do the cam belt and water pump as well. It's not worth not doing that. Anyway, obviously bits of rust and things on this one. Rust is quite a common reason why these were taken off the road as well. But let's not go into that too much now. We don't really need to, because it's all about a lot of fun whilst driving a van in an Express 160. So that's what we're going to go and do now. So viewers, we're at this MGZ register event at Great British Car Journey today. I'm just going to nip this out for a little brief drive up some interesting roads in Derbyshire. Certainly it just feels like initially every other 25 and Streetwise and R3 200 and ZR that I've driven, so in the history of no budget reviews, I've had a lot of them. I can't even begin to remember. I think it's like 8 of those in total across all those different particular makes and models. Initially, this doesn't actually seem as quick as I thought it would. That sounds really strange, but I've driven a 120 one of these, well, it was a ZR rather than an Express, and this seems, it's quick, but you have to really sort of rev it probably into the VBC kind of range to actually make as much progress as you'd sort of think you'd want to in a van like this. Certainly, handling, steering, superb. Ride actually isn't as hard as I thought it would be, particularly because we've got these quite large wheels on this. It's absolutely fine. Brakes feel nice and positive. Because the gear shift is a bit worn, this has done 109,000 miles. It's not perhaps the nicest, but that happens to these quite a lot. Whether you've got the IB5 Ford gearbox, the PG1, or the earlier R65 that wouldn't have been in an Express or a Commerce, but was used all the way through from the R8 200s and 400s right the way through to the 25s, 45s, ZSs and ZRs up to 2003. So yeah, very, very kind of immediate, darty steering. Certainly when they actually agreed to make a successor to the R8 200 in the form of the R3, this was a really, really good way to go about it, and that's what these are based on. The R3 200 is very similar to these. So we'll just turn round and then we'll come back. Maybe I can just get this round in one. There we go, viewers. So there were some other engines available apart from this 1.8 VBC. There was a 1.4 engine, which would have been in the 105 van. Actually 103 horsepower, but it's known as a 105 because it just sounds better, I think. And then there are some engines we can't talk about, viewers, because we don't talk about diesels on this channel. Thank you, Mayor of London, and all your friends around the country with the ultra emission and clean air zones. So now I'm pushing it a little bit harder, and it's a pretty good road. It's just part of the A6 here. It's just a really nice car on roads like this. I mean, I would personally change the bushings in this gear shift to make it a little bit tighter, but once you get used to it, it's fine. Even the 105 would be a lot of fun actually. I've driven a 105 MGZR, and I'm sure that the Express would handle in a very similar way. It's just when you look behind you in this, you don't see any rear seats. That's really the only difference to the way that this thing actually drives. And with this engine, it seems similar in many ways to actually the 120, because that's just got the 1.8 engine with no VVC system in it. It's really quite fun. It's pretty good. You just sort of forget that you're driving a van completely. You just totally forget that it's a van. I've driven quite a few vans, even some of them have been on the channel, and not like this. Not like this at all. They don't put a massive smile on your face every time you drive them. Yeah, I'm really happy to have had a go in this. I hope you've enjoyed the video as much as I have. I'm delighted to say that MG Rover content on this channel is still sponsored by Discount MG Rover Spares, or DMGRS, and here I am at their offices just near Southampton. So if you need parts for your 45, ZS, ZT, or any other model from the MG Rover era, and actually a little bit before that, then I'll put a link in the video description below. But my car's actually got two exclusive DMGRS solutions to it. It's got a metal thermostat housing, which is for the KV6 engine, and it's also got an upgraded heater resistor. But there are loads of other unique things. You can get the Sheddist kit, which is for manual 45s and ZS's. Lots of other things as well. And I'm very grateful to Scott, Max and Matt at DMGRS for continuing to help keep this car on the road by offering me some discounted parts, which is wonderful. So don't forget to visit DMGRS by clicking the link in the video description below. So viewers, should you consider an MG Express or Rover Commerce for your hard-earned budget up to £1,000? It's kind of a moot point really. They never really made very many of these. I think it's something like 300 in total of the Express and the Commerce, and these days, I mean, trying to find one of these is just impossible, which is why the MG Car Club have this particular example in preservation, particularly with this 160 engine. I doubt they made too many of these in comparison with the total production of the Express, but it's good fun. I mean, it's a practical but fun car. Van, not a car, a van, which makes it very, very unique and interesting. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment below, and we shall see you again soon for more car-based examples of things that you can buy on an extremely small budget.